In the far reaches of the galaxy, war had become a way of life. Nations rose and fell, empires clashed, and all the while, humanity stood at the center of it all, fiercely determined to carve out its place among the stars. The Earth had endured countless battles, but it was not without cost. Colonies were lost, cities burned, and many brave men and women were taken prisoner by the alien forces they fought against. Among the prisoners was a woman named Jenna. She was no ordinary captive. Once she had been a leader, a warrior, who fought alongside her comrades to protect her people. But now, she was nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game, a trophy claimed by the alien empire as part of their victory over the humans. They called her a war bride, a title she despised. She had been taken from her home, forced into chains, and handed over as a gift to the highest-ranking officer in the enemy's army. Jenna's life had changed forever the day the aliens invaded. She had witnessed the fall of her colony, the death of her friends and comrades, and the cruel destruction of everything she had fought for. She had been captured, bound in chains, and shipped across the galaxy to serve as a symbol of the Empire's dominance. Stripped of her dignity and her freedom, Jenna was forced into a life of servitude. The chains that bound her were more than just metal. They were a constant reminder of her defeat, her helplessness, and the unimaginable loss she had suffered. But even in her darkest moments, Jenna had not lost her spirit. She had vowed to herself that one day she would be free. And now, standing before the cold, alien officials who held her fate in their hands, she remained resolute. She was determined to survive, no matter the cost. As Jenna was led through the dark corridors of the enemy's ship, her heart raced with a mix of fear and anger. She had been a prisoner for months, and every day had been a battle against despair. She had seen others like her, women who had been taken as war brides, their spirits broken by the cruelty of their captors. But Jenna was different. She would not be defeated. She would not be reduced to nothing. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps echoing down the hall. A door opened, and a tall figure stepped into the room. He was human, like her, but there was something different about him. His uniform was marked with the insignia of the human fleet, and his expression was one of determination, tempered by something else, compassion, perhaps. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, it was as though time had stopped. There was something in his gaze that made her heart skip a beat, something that made her feel seen. He introduced himself as Captain Marcus Kane. He was part of a mission to negotiate a peace treaty between the humans and the alien empire. But Jenna's mind wasn't on the treaty. She was focused on the man in front of her. She had seen many humans in her time as a prisoner, but none like him. He had an air of authority, but there was also a kindness in him that set him apart from the others. "You're not like the others," Jenna said, her voice hoarse from disuse. Marcus looked at her, his expression softening. "I'm not here to harm you, Jenna. I'm here to help."
We're going to get you out of here. Jenna's eyes narrowed.
"Help? You think you can just walk in here and free me?"
You don't understand. These chains, they're a part of me now.
"This life, this prison, it's all I've known." Marcus took a step closer, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her heart race. "I understand more than you think. I know what it's like to be trapped, to feel powerless. But you don't have to stay in this life. You can be free." Jenna scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Free? What does that even mean anymore?" "I've been a prisoner for so long that freedom feels like a dream. The moment I take these chains off, I'll just be lost. I won't know who I am without them." Marcus paused, considering her words carefully. He could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of her past bearing down on her. He knew that it wouldn't be easy to convince her, but he was determined. He had seen enough suffering in his life to last 1,000 lifetimes, and he wasn't about to let another soul remain trapped by the past. "Jenna," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "I don't know what you've been through, but I do know one thing. These chains, whether they're real or just in your mind, they don't define you. You're stronger than this."
You deserve more than this. Jenna looked away, her throat tight.
She wanted to believe him, but the weight of her experiences made it hard. She had been betrayed by those she trusted, captured, and brought to this alien ship as nothing more than a trophy. Her spirit had been broken, piece by piece, until all that was left was a woman who had learned to survive, but never to live. Marcus reached out and gently touched her arm, his fingers brushing against the cold metal of her chains. "I can't promise that it will be easy, but I can promise you this. You don't have to face this alone. I'll help you. Together, we'll find a way to make sure you never have to wear these chains again." For a moment, Jenna didn't know what to say. The walls she had built around herself for so long began to crack, and something deep inside her stirred. It had been so long since anyone had shown her kindness, had given her hope. Could she really trust him? Could she let go of the chains that had defined her for so long? Before she could respond, the door behind them opened, and 2 alien guards entered, their weapons drawn. Marcus stepped back, his hand moving to the blaster at his side. But Jenna, surprisingly, didn't move. She felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. This was her chance to escape, to be free. With a swift motion, she reached for the chains around her wrists, pulling the clasp free. For the first time in months, she felt the weight of them lift from her body. It was a small victory, but it was enough to spark something inside her. The aliens advanced, but Marcus and Jenna were ready. Together, they fought their way through the ship's corridors, dodging blasts and taking down guards with practiced precision. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest as she realized something. She was no longer the helpless war bride she had once been. She was a fighter, a survivor. And with Marcus by her side, she felt like she had a chance, like she could finally break free from the chains that had bound her for so long. As they reached the ship's escape pods, Marcus turned to her, his expression serious. "This is it, Jenna. You're free now."
You don't have to go back to that life. You can choose your future.
Jenna looked down at her hands, the chains now gone. She felt lighter, but also more uncertain than ever. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a choice. She had always believed that freedom was a myth, something that belonged to others. But now she was beginning to understand. Freedom was something that could be claimed, something that could be fought for. As the escape pod doors closed and the ship's engines roared to life, Jenna took a deep breath. She had no idea what her future would hold, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. She was free. Jenna sat quietly in the small room of the human fleet ship, staring out the window at the endless stretch of stars. The silence around her felt strange, as though the noise of the past, the sounds of chains, the alien ships, the battles, had been swallowed up by space itself. She had never felt this still before. The endless weight of her past was still there, heavy on her shoulders, but here, in the quiet, it felt like the chains no longer had a hold on her. She was free. That word echoed in her mind over and over. Free. But what did it really mean? Jenna didn't know. All her life she had been a warrior, a fighter, someone who had always known where her place was. Even when she was taken prisoner, chained, and brought to a foreign world, she had known what to do. She had known how to survive. But now she was out of the chains, out of the alien prison. But she still didn't know who she was without them. Without the struggle, she had been freed by Marcus, and she owed him her life. That much was clear. But something inside her didn't feel right. She was supposed to be grateful, but instead, she felt empty. Like a part of her had been lost forever when the chains were removed. The chains had been more than just metal. They had been her identity. They had been a constant reminder of what she had survived, of everything she had overcome. Without them, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. Jenna was pulled from her thoughts as the door to her room opened. Marcus stepped inside, his expression warm but cautious. He had been kind to her since the moment he rescued her, offering her a chance to start over, a chance to leave the horrors of the alien empire behind. But Jenna wasn't sure how to do that. She had spent so many months as a prisoner, so many months as a war bride, that she couldn't remember a time when she hadn't been defined by her chains. "You've been quiet," Marcus said gently. "Are you all right?" Jenna didn't answer immediately. She didn't know how to explain what she was feeling. She wasn't sure she understood it herself. Instead, she simply nodded, offering him a faint smile.
I'm fine. But Marcus could see through the lie.
He knew her too well already, and he could tell that something was eating at her. "Jenna, you don't have to pretend. If there's something on your mind, you can talk to me." She turned her head to look at him, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her even harder. She had wanted to talk to him, to explain everything that was happening inside her, but the words wouldn't come. She felt ashamed of what she was thinking, of how she was feeling. She had been freed, yet the thought of freedom frightened her. I don't know what to do with myself," she finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been a prisoner for so long, and I've fought so hard to survive. But now, without the chains, I don't know who I am. What if I'm nothing without them? What if I was meant to be a war bride, a prisoner, and nothing more?" Marcus's eyes softened as he stepped closer, sitting beside her on the small bench. "You're more than that, Jenna. You're not defined by the chains. You're defined by the choices you make, by the strength inside you, the fact that you're here now, alive and free. That's proof of your strength. You're not a prisoner anymore. You don't have to carry the past with you." Jenna shook her head, frustration bubbling up inside her. "You don't understand. These chains, this life, it gave me purpose. It gave me something to hold on to. Without it, I feel empty. I don't know how to be free. I don't know how to live without the fight." Marcus paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Freedom isn't about being without a fight. It's about choosing your battles.
It's about deciding what you want to fight for. I think you're afraid because you've never had a choice.
You've always been forced into a role, but now you get to choose. You don't have to be what they made you. You get to decide who you want to be. Jenna turned her gaze back to the stars. She didn't respond. The words Marcus spoke were comforting, but they didn't fill the emptiness inside her. For so long, her life had been about survival. And now, even with the chains gone, she didn't know how to live any other way. Days passed and Jenna struggled to adjust to her new life. The crew of the human fleet ship had welcomed her with open arms, but Jenna felt like an outsider. She had never been part of something like this. The soldiers, the officers, none of them had the scars she carried. None of them had seen the things she had seen. They had no idea what it was like to be a war bride, to be chained and forced to serve a cruel empire, to be nothing but a pawn in a game of power and dominance. Jenna's internal battle continued, and it became clear to Marcus that she was slipping further away from him. The woman he had freed was retreating into herself, locking away her emotions behind walls she had built over years of captivity. He tried to reach out to her, tried to give her the space she needed, but nothing seemed to help. Jenna was a fighter, but now she was fighting against herself. It wasn't long before Marcus began to notice something else. Jenna's obsession with reclaiming the chains. She hadn't spoken about it yet, but he saw the way she stared at the heavy metal when it was in view, how her fingers would unconsciously touch the place where the chains used to be. She never admitted it, but he knew what she wanted. She wanted the chains back. One evening, Marcus found her alone in a storage room, her eyes fixed on the discarded shackles she had been freed from. She hadn't spoken a word, but he could feel the weight of her longing, the pull she felt towards the past. It was as if the chains were still a part of her, a part of who she was. It made Marcus's heart ache for her. He wanted to fix everything, to make her see that she didn't need the chains, that she was more than what she had been forced to become. "Jenna," Marcus said softly, stepping into the room. "What are you doing?" She turned to him, her face hard, but her eyes betraying the confusion inside her. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now," she whispered. "I can't just pretend that everything's fine. I can't just forget what I was, what I still am." Marcus walked closer, his heart breaking as he saw the pain in her eyes. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he wasn't going to let her slip away from him. "Jenna, you're not that person anymore. You're not a prisoner, and you're not a war bride. You don't have to be anything but yourself. You can choose a new life, a new future." She shook her head, her fingers still lightly caressing the chains. "I don't know how to do that." "How do I just forget everything?" Marcus reached out, taking her hand gently in his. "You don't forget.
You just let go."
You let go of the things that keep you tied to the past, and you move forward. It won't be easy, but I'll be with you every step of the way." Jenna looked down at their hands, the warmth of his touch offering her a fleeting sense of comfort, but the chains still lingered in her mind, the heavy weight of them pulling at her. She didn't know if she was ready to let go, but for the first time in a long time she felt like she didn't have to do it alone. Jenna's journey since leaving the alien ship had not been easy. Despite the new life Marcus had promised her, she found herself constantly drawn back to the shadows of her past. The weight of the chains, though now gone from her wrists, still seemed to cling to her soul. Every day she fought an internal battle, torn between the woman she had been, strong, defiant, and bound by the chains of her captors, and the woman Marcus believed she could become, free from the past, full of hope and possibility. It was on a quiet evening, as the ship floated in the silence of deep space, that Jenna realized just how far she had fallen into the darkness of her own mind. She stood at the window, staring out at the stars that seemed so distant, so far beyond her reach. The endless void of space mirrored the emptiness she felt inside. For weeks, Marcus had been patient with her, offering her his friendship, his kindness. But Jenna could feel herself slipping further away from him, unable to accept the freedom he offered her. It wasn't that she didn't want to be free, it was that the freedom felt more like a prison. The chains had been the only thing she knew, the only thing that kept her grounded. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Marcus entering the room. Bah! His eyes softened when he saw her standing alone by the window. He had come to check on her, but what he found was a woman, lost in her own thoughts, drowning in memories. She couldn't escape. "Jenna," he said quietly, his voice filled with concern. "How are you doing?" She didn't answer at first. She couldn't find the words to explain the turmoil inside her. How could she tell him that every time she closed her eyes, she saw the chains again? How could she explain that she felt like a stranger in her own life? She wasn't the woman she had once been, but she wasn't the woman she could be either. "I'm struggling," Jenna said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I keep thinking about what I used to be. I keep thinking about the chains." Marcus stepped closer to her, but he didn't touch her. He knew that she wasn't ready for that kind of connection. Not yet. She had to make this journey on her own terms. But he couldn't just stand by and watch her drown in her own thoughts. "You're not that person anymore," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "You're free now. You don't have to keep fighting battles that were never yours to begin with." Jenna shook her head, a bitter smile crossing her face. "You don't understand. The chains, they were everything. They were the only thing that kept me going. Without them, I don't know who I am."
I don't know what to fight for. Marcus's heart ached as he looked at her.
He knew the chains she spoke of were more than just metal. They were the scars of a life lived in captivity, of a woman forced into a role she had never chosen. He wanted to tell her that she didn't need the chains to be strong, that she didn't need them to survive, but Jenna wasn't ready to hear that yet. She was still trapped by her past. "Maybe it's not about fighting," Marcus said, his voice gentle but firm. "Maybe it's about learning to live. I know that's hard, but you're not alone. I'm here, and we'll figure this out together." Jenna looked away, her eyes filled with uncertainty. She didn't know if she could ever let go of the past. The thought of it scared her. The chains had been her identity, her shield. Without them, she felt exposed, vulnerable. What if she was nothing without them? The days passed, and Jenna tried to adjust to her new life. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was trapped in her own mind. She spent hours alone in her room, staring out at the stars, trying to understand what freedom truly meant. Marcus was patient with her, offering her a space to heal, but there was something in her that kept her from moving forward. It was as if the chains were still holding her back, even though they no longer wrapped around her body. One evening, as Jenna walked through the corridors of the ship, she saw something that made her stop in her tracks. There, in the corner of the hallway, she saw the remnants of the old shackles she had worn during her captivity. They were discarded, a symbol of the past that she could never truly escape. Her heart skipped a beat as she reached down and picked them up, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. For a moment she felt a rush of memories flood her mind, memories of the pain, the fear, but also the strength that had come from surviving it all. The chains had been a part of her, and even now they seemed to call to her, whispering that she wasn't truly free without them. Marcus appeared behind her, his eyes narrowing as he saw what she was holding. He had hoped she wouldn't seek out the chains, but he knew that this moment was inevitable. Jenna wasn't ready to let go of the past, and he couldn't make her. But he couldn't let her go down this path alone either. "Jenna," he said softly, stepping closer to her.
You don't need these. She didn't look at him. Her fingers tightened around the chains, and she could feel the weight of them, both physically and emotionally.
"I do need them," she whispered. "They're all I have left. Without them, I'm nothing." "No, Jenna," Marcus said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're more than the chains. You're more than what they made you. You're free now. You don't need to carry this burden anymore." Jenna shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. She wasn't ready to hear this, wasn't ready to let go of the only thing that had kept her going. She felt like she was falling apart, like the woman she had been was slipping away, and she didn't know how to hold on to her. "I'm scared," Jenna admitted, her voice trembling. "I don't know who I am anymore. Without the chains, without the fight, I don't know where I belong." Marcus didn't say anything at first. He simply stood beside her, offering her the comfort of his presence. "You belong here," he said finally, his voice steady. "You belong with the people who care about you. You belong with me." Jenna turned to face him, her heart aching as she looked into his eyes. She had always been a fighter, always been someone who knew her place in the world. But now, in this strange, empty space, she didn't know who she was. She didn't know where she belonged. The chains had been her identity, but now they were gone.
What was left?
"I don't know if I can do this," Jenna whispered. "I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be." "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not," Marcus replied, his voice calm and reassuring. "I'm asking you to be you, the real you, the person who deserves to be free." Jenna's fingers tightened around the chains one last time, then slowly, almost reluctantly, she let them go. The weight of them fell to the floor with a loud clatter, and for a moment Jenna felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. The chains were gone, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe again. Marcus watched her carefully, sensing the shift in her. He didn't know if she was ready to embrace her new life, but he knew that she had taken the first step. She had let go of the past, even if it was only for a moment. And that was enough for now. "I don't know what comes next," Jenna said softly, her voice still filled with uncertainty. "But I'm willing to try." Marcus smiled, a warmth in his eyes. "That's all I can ask for." Jenna looked up at him, her heart beating a little faster. For the first time since her freedom, she felt like she might be able to find her way. She didn't know what the future held, but she wasn't alone anymore. And that, she realized, was enough to give her hope. Jenna woke up to the sound of the ship's hum, the quiet vibration of the engines beneath her feet. The soft light of the morning filtered through the small window, casting a peaceful glow on her face. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had truly rested. It wasn't the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who had found peace, but it was the first real sleep she had in weeks. The nightmares were less frequent now, the memories of the chains and the alien empire slowly fading into the background of her mind. But as much as she wanted to believe that she was free, that the past no longer held any power over her, the reality was far more complicated. Every day, Jenna fought the urge to look over her shoulder, to check for the guards who had once kept watch over her, the officers who had told her what to do, where to go, and how to live. The chains might have been removed, but the fear they had instilled in her remained. It was not easy to forget the life she had lived. Freedom wasn't something that came easily. Her mind kept drifting back to the moment she had stood in front of the broken shackles. The moment she had let them go, it had felt like a small victory, but now, as time passed, she began to wonder if it had been the right choice. She had been offered a new life, a chance to start over. But with that freedom came a responsibility she wasn't sure she was ready for. How could she be free if she was still holding on to the past? Marcus had been patient with her, always there when she needed him, offering support, understanding, and his quiet strength. But Jenna could see it in his eyes. He was starting to worry about her. She was becoming more distant, lost in her thoughts, always retreating further into herself. She hadn't meant for it to happen, but the fear, the uncertainty, it kept growing inside her. It was like an invisible chain, one she couldn't see but could feel, wrapping around her heart and mind, pulling her back to a place she didn't want to go. The ship had docked at a new station, a place where the humans were negotiating with the aliens, working towards some sort of peace agreement. Jenna had tried not to get involved. She wasn't sure she wanted to be a part of anything that involved the aliens anymore. They had taken so much from her. But she knew that deep down, this was the only way to move forward. She couldn't keep running from the past forever. Eventually, she would have to face it, no matter how painful. Marcus found her standing in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped the railing as if she was holding on to something that might slip away. He had watched her for days now, and it was clear to him that she was struggling. But what hurt the most was that she wasn't letting him in. She was shutting herself off, refusing to talk about what was going on inside her. "Jenna?" Marcus's voice was gentle, but there was an edge of concern in it that he couldn't hide. "We've landed. We need to talk." Jenna didn't turn to look at him. She just stood there, her eyes fixed on the endless expanse of space.
I know, she replied quietly. I'm not sure I'm ready for this.
"It's too much." Marcus walked up beside her, standing just close enough to make her aware of his presence, but not so close as to crowd her. "I understand, but you can't keep running from it, Jenna. This is part of your life now. You can't just shut it all out. It's time to face it." Jenna swallowed hard. She could feel her pulse quicken, the familiar rush of panic rising in her chest. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if I go back to who I was? What if I choose the wrong side?" Marcus took a deep breath, stepping closer and placing a hand gently on her arm. "You're stronger than you know. You've already shown that. You've survived everything the universe has thrown at you. You're not going to lose yourself now. You've been through too much to let fear control you." Jenna looked at him then, her eyes filled with doubt. "I don't know who I am anymore, Marcus. I don't know if I can ever be the person I was before."
I've changed. I've been broken.
I'm not sure if I can come back from that. Marcus's heart ached for her.
He could see the pain she was hiding, the fear that was buried deep within her. He knew she was afraid of the unknown, of what might happen if she took that first step toward facing the past. But he also knew that the only way to heal was to confront the pain head on. "You don't have to be who you were before," he said, his voice steady.
You're not going to be perfect. No one is.
"But you can choose to be someone better. You can choose to be who you want to be, not who the aliens made you, not who the chains made you. This is your life now. You get to decide what comes next." Jenna's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she turned her gaze back to the stars, lost in thought. She had no idea what to do next. All she knew was that she couldn't keep living in fear, hiding from the truth, and running from the choices she had made. She had to face her demons, even if it meant confronting the alien empire that had stolen so much from her. Later that day, the peace talks began. Jenna accompanied Marcus to the meeting, still unsure of where she stood in all of this. The room was filled with representatives from both the human fleet and the alien empire, their faces cold and distant. Jenna could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the negotiation hanging over them all. But as she looked around the room, something shifted inside her. She wasn't just a captive anymore. She wasn't just a war bride. She was a part of this. She had a voice, a choice. And for the first time in a long time, she realized that the chains she had feared were gone for good. As the discussions went on, Jenna couldn't help but notice the way the aliens looked at her. They saw her as a symbol, a trophy of their victory. But she didn't care about that anymore. She had been their prisoner, their possession, but she wasn't theirs anymore. She was free, and it was time to reclaim her power, to take control of her own future. The meeting grew more intense, and Jenna felt the familiar fire inside her rise. The anger, the frustration, the need to fight for something better, it all came rushing back. She wasn't going to let the aliens dictate her life any longer. She wasn't going to let them control her. She had suffered enough, and now it was time to make a stand. Standing up from her seat, Jenna walked to the front of the room. All eyes turned to her, surprise flashing in their expressions. She didn't care. She wasn't afraid anymore. "I may have been a war bride," she said, her voice loud and clear. "I may have been a prisoner, but I am not your property. I am not a trophy. And I am not going to let anyone, human or alien, decide who I am or what my future holds. This is my life, and I choose what happens next." The room fell silent. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall, her eyes fixed on the alien representatives, refusing to look away. She had made her choice. She was no longer a prisoner of her past, and she wasn't going to be anyone's pawn ever again. Marcus stood behind her, pride swelling in his chest. He knew she was ready. He knew that this was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she took control of her own fate. The alien leaders exchanged uncertain glances, but Jenna didn't back down. She had spoken the truth, and now it was time to live it.